Hi, welcome to the Trappist Transfer, an actual play podcast using the Eclipse Phase RPG system, set in a fictional sci-fi future of Earth and humankind. I'm Will Blackmore, and I'm somehow doing a Game Master voice right now, and I'll be your Game Master weaving a web of intrigue for our players. To my left, Ashley and Bradley playing Truth Seeker, Mark Jondal playing Comms 3, Evie playing Caster, and Connor Crumley playing Penelope Gray. Where we last left off was a bit of a shocker. Anyway, cliffhangers and all that jazz. Y'all had just come together for the first time in the hallway as Caster was on the way to their office in the HQ of Pollux. Already, Caster having a doozy of a day, shall we say, and then pile on. True Seeker, you were on your way because, describe if you could what happened to your character.
So essentially, when the blast hit our ship, Truth Seeker's original self, Truth Seeker Prime, the
OP
that I was cloned after, the OP Truth Seeker's consciousness got downloaded as well, and they were ready to take back being the only Truth Seeker, but we had kind of, because I was a clone and not just like a backup, I had kind of created my own personality and I wasn't ready to die, so...
Well, it's been 3 years of unique memories, right? Since, you got dropped off with your lunchbox.
Yeah, literally. 3 years of me, doing my own thing, living my own life, and, Truth Seeker never really treated me as if I was Truth Seeker, but more of a tool for them to use. And so, I wasn't, an equal with them, and that kind of, I feel had made Alpha, rebel in a way. And so when Alpha, Truth Seeker Alpha was faced with this happening, they fought each other a lot, and it was kind of stressful, and then we ended up, inside the digital hold, blending our consciousnesses together. And so at this point...
Best hug ever.
It was a good hug. We both glowed lights, colors with slightly different shades.
And because of that, you've gotten some pros and cons, right? You were more self-assured in your decisions because, the other voice in your head is you saying you're doing the great job.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, your sort of drawback, your social drawback of having to speak the truth doubles down on itself, and we created that as a mechanic in terms of you're not able to use your pool points to flip your dice.
Yeah.
At least for now, until you were more integrated.
Yeah.
But I like that.
I'm cool with it.
So you were on your way to Caster to kind of go okay, you're the expert on this. How do I what is happening to you? Basically getting a checkup. Mark, do you speak to the status of Comms 3 right now? What is going through its consciousness, for lack of a better terms, right now? It's still figuring itself out. It's still kind of locking into even what an image is of itself. Is that correct?
Right. It's early childhood development stuff. How do I relate to other things that are going on?
You should definitely talk to Caster.
Other people that are out there. Other things. How do I relate? What's my role?
Mm-hmm.
How do I react to everything? But I have a shit ton of reference material. I can go and I can call up examples. Examples of what would be done in any given situation.
Nice.
So I'm burning a lot of processing power doing this.
So a question on that. This popped up the moment you mentioned this, though. So we discussed this concept before, but where are you drawing this information from? Because I could see you linking back to the compendium of human knowledge, right?
The
whatever.
blast.
But exactly, that's what I was looking for. So the blast, that is a lot of human knowledge, but what sticks out to you and also what drew your consciousness out to begin with was the humanity in the blast, right? The messages that people were saying and putting out. And it's that's what you link to as your knowledge base.
Right.
Ooh, I like that. Very cool. So I'm kind of continuing around the room. Figured this seemed like a nice exercise to draw us back into the moment. Caster, you've also had a rough day. Could you kind of...
It's not the best.
Speak to what's happening to Caster, how Caster's feeling, what's going on, especially as we're about to walk into your office.
Yes.
And all of these creatures just descended upon you.
So, for a long time, Caster's just been BA. And like, you know, like, it's cool, I got this. Like, oh, you humans and your problems and your emotions. Which, I mean, I am human.
Cheers to that.
Right?
I'll cheers to human problems and emotions.
Right.
Mark, you got to cheers to human problems.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you don't know about this yet. This is what we do. In any case, so basically when the blast hit, if you had asked Caster how they would have handled that, they would have been like, but it didn't go that way. Overwhelmed, Pollux had to step in, and like Caster had to go down some sort of recouping like lists to get them back on track. Like what is touch like? Can we intake that information? What is sound like? What is taste like? All these things. And now we're trying to come back and be like, oh, okay, everything's messed up. And I know things to help. Like, oh God, just give me space to think. Because Caster took 2 traumas in that and like quite a bit over their threshold. And so basically, I'm just trying to get to the space where me and Pollux can work, which is headquarters. And as I'm walking up, Penelope's there, and I'm like, cool, great, it's super busy, like, we're just gonna keep going. Like, and I'm like, right, exactly. Like, this whole time, it's just like, okay. All right, I see you, I'm gonna handle that, but, like, let's just keep moving. Can you just keep on the
We're
same?
also, like, in between your safe spaces, right? Like, home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right there. So, awesome.
And, like, I was so close, like, the Caster was so close, and then we come upon comms 3, which I don't necessarily know is comms 3 yet, and it's like, what is that thing? And oh, it's Truth Seeker, and like it's literally the worst. And then
you
we're
just brought a bunch of weird code with you,
right? And they're just
I'm double worse.
right,
now.
and they also have the same look that Penelope Gray does, and like I'm sure that their stuff is mostly legitimate. So
mostly legitimate.
So now
self-centered as fuck.
So right, so I'm kind of basically standing in. Caster is standing in a giant conference room, just waiting for the next shit show to start. Honestly, like
here it comes.
Yeah. Right? Does that sound about right?
Yep.
And that's kind of like, honestly, like that's where Caster is at. Is this kind of like not completely lost it, like panic attack or like, but like definitely like this anxious like hold of like, oh God, okay, like doing the thing's gonna do the thing, like just, and like kind of looking at everyone else being like, please don't give me anything else. Like, I know, don't make it easy. Could we just all please? Right.
I like it. Please. Cool.
Yeah. But like more upset, less little kid. More like
Yeah. Meanwhile, like Caster has been doing Pollux has been doing its best like all day to be like, just take care of yourself, everything's fine.
Yeah,
like,
right.
When you're ready, I'd appreciate your presence at the office.
Right.
Like, it's very repeatedly has been saying that.
Right.
So Penelope, same question. What is Penelope been doing, especially in this aftermath, and where was Penelope's sort of like current state, like their motivations, what's happening with them?
I mean, in the aftermath, Penelope was definitely like, all right, me, Weaver's Guild, like, let's patch as many things as we can. Let's like partition, shunt everything. Goes to find Caster and can see that Caster is very much in a walk and talk mode, and Penelope's like, yeah, we need to sit down and figure this out, and is like throwing windows at them of like, here's the code we fixed, here's what's really damaged that we have to like touch right now, and like trying to create a priority list without adding to any anxiety.
And I'd say, like, right, I like that. To which Penelope's also been, like, handling the trauma and anxiety very well. Yeah. In fact, is acting as a bit of a pocket right now to help others. I'd say rally, really, like, that upbringing about, like, how to handle problematic moments is definitely when the fox is dashed down a hole and the hounds are bouncing
Drink
around.
a cup of tea, it'll be fine.
That's what Grandma always
It's
said.
just a problem. Problems are solvable.
Grandma Gray. Ooh,
Yeah.
I want Grandma Gray to be a thing now. It could be Great Grandma Gray.
I think I have Great Andre.
Yes. Ooh, Great Aunt Gray. I like
Yeah.
that. Gag.
Gag me.
Whoa. So flirty. I like it.
Yeah.
I was gonna be flirty that time.
No, yeah. The NPC that I was working on was
Same thing.
Yeah.
Great Aunt. So
Great Aunt. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah.
like it. Great Aunt. So I like that. I want to see some of that wisdom pop out. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, you're just coming to caster to kind of touch base, say what is going on, address the issue, because you also know that it's been a bit of like a 2-step forward, 1 step back,
Yeah.
2 steps back, 1 step forward, like this barely managing things, but it doesn't feel like it's getting better,
Yeah.
right?
and like where would you like us to manage resources as the Weavers Guild? Where do you want Pollux to be doing it? Where like
And I'm into that. We're just trying to get to the place.
Yeah. And then these two show up and
Yeah.
Penelope can read all of this code and is like,
Right. And I would say
I
that
don't understand, and
right.
we need to sit down and chat.
Yeah. So I like this. So all of this happens like you've come together. This is sort of like your state of being, right? As we were about to head into that office, and I'm going to take a cinematic pause to allow us to kind of like set the stage of what else is going on. Like we kind of came up with like where our current state is, but I think as an example of that and what else is going on outside in the ship, I kind of want to see like on your personal displays. I'm saying Caster has had almost none of these pop up, and that it's like your displays
Oh,
get
sure.
filtered right now, except for like maybe a couple of the very innocuous ones, but like the major stressful threads maybe are
Right. Well, and I would
coming up for you.
imagine that it also would be focused. So, like, when Connor was talking about, like, what Penelope was wanting to get done and, like, feeding me information that to a certain extent, Pollux would have let that through because Caster would have been like, cool, hard data.
Nice relevant info, yes.
Right.
But
Like, I
anything
can
that's
handle
like-
this. And, like, honestly, like, that's why it was sort of like, okay, let's walk and talk. And then
Yeah.
it was like, oh, and these two dinguses, like, oh, good Lord. Because we were on that track. It was like, oh, work.
Hard relevant data that's already sorted.
Right.
So you can like, okay, that
sorted.
goes in that partition folder.
Yeah.
You can look at it.
Yeah, like this is relevant. It'll be like, okay, need this later. I like
Right.
that.
This is a new Gordian knot.
Nice. So I've got a series of these kind of like prepped up, but I would
Yeah.
love to see if any of you, starting off with actually the tweet, if you don't mind reading that.
Oh.
A tweet from Pollux that goes out to
Yeah.
everybody as sort of like the general announcement. Pause for a moment. Then we're going to kind of go, and if you have something great, it can be a narrative piece of this is a story that's popping up on the forums or has been sort of like general rumor and knowledge that's sort of popping around that's like being passed, in the subreddits. But if not, that's also fine. I've got other pieces kind of interspersed. It can be narrative, or it can be like, here's a sentence that I have, or a little, piece that's, prepped up for you, up to you. But I want to start us off with Pollux making an announcement over like the general boards.
Correct. Yeah, and in general, I would just say, sort of to set the stage, that like, much like any sort of omnipresent voice, they don't really hash words with you. They're not like, excuse me, this is Pollux. Like, it's not. So this is just a message from Pollux. Due to the 2,100 and
2.13
Oh,
e
sorry.
to the sixth.
cool.
Yeah. So that is
well-
scientific notation for 2.13 million.
Cool. Then I'll just do it again because I didn't know how to.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Due to the 2.13 e to the 6 consciousnesses currently inhabiting the hold, there will continue to be rolling processing power brownouts. Your continued patience is appreciated as administrative resources are dispatched to optimize malfunctioning subroutines.
As one of you, I'm not saying who, sees that come across their boards, while you're watching it goes 2.12 times e to the 6th, like the number updates live, like
Oh.
and it gone down, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Does anybody else? You had mentioned maybe like a narrative piece about like what's kind of going on, or what public service announcements are happening.
Definitely the Weavers Guild puts out an internal message to then spread to any other group that you are involved in. Please minimize processing power by going home, going to sleep. If you're a crew, hit meet space. Text only messages.
Meat space.
I was going to say, meat space seems a little obtuse for Penelope Gray. I feel like they would use something.
This is the full message that
Right?
went out. I don't know that Penelope actually would have written it.
So people have mods. Also, somebody's transmit. Like one only person only gets it in pirate.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to be clear,
I'm going to think about what my mod would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, just can't. I like this.
Yeah.
But definitely sent out as a text only message to like set an example. Like turn your filters down, slow your processing.
Yeah, just like it's rationing time, right? It's kind of what you're saying.
Slow your processing roll, bro.
Do what you can. We're fucked.
Meanwhile, in the background, there's also general calls for applications for to be considered for first among firsts on the ship is being called for and is due by X date or hours from now, kind of idea. Like those who wish to step forward and volunteer for the position to be considered by the populace has this deadline before debates. Candidate. I don't know, stump speeches, blurbs, whatever, like statements. There you go. Candidate statements are to be submitted at that time as well. Mark, do you have anything in particular you think that might be in the zeitgeist of the ship also?
Yeah, a little soundbite, a little blurb. Latency. Is it happening to you?
And it ends there. And the guy's like, yes, it totally is happening to me.
Then there's like the innocuous reporting of X number of cases of latency that have been reported since the event.
I like that. People are, by the way, referring to it as the Carrington level event.
The Carrington level event.
And at some point, there, whenever you see these things pop up, there's a hyperlink available. And if anyone's curious, would you like to know about the Carrington event?
Can I click it?
Yes. Carrington event took place in 1859 and was a solar flare that was the most powerful on record, at least once records were being kept at that point in such rudimentary form versus now. But it was a solar flare that was such magnitude that when it hit the Earth, created a electrical discharge in the atmosphere that was so strong that the current grid structure of the world, which was telegraph wires, became electrically charged and discharged along the wires, with reports of several buildings burning down due to the discharges from the solar flare. Estimates of should this have occurred perhaps early in the 21st century when power grids were primarily unshielded, it would have wiped out civilization potentially.
Holy fuck.
Due to destroying the power grid and discharges. Thankfully, no such event happened until far later, which was a basically Carrington event. Like people are referring to this new one as a Carrington level event, but many magnitudes greater, right? One that shut down our magnetosphere. Anyway, just context.
Nice.
I really just want a little question on the bottom. Would you like to know more?
Mm-hmm.
I also just think
Actually,
of
we
like
could do that because I will just astronomy.
how many
Don't go too
duders
deep.
like got fried like squirrels on that telegraph wire too. Like you just think about how much telegraph wire was out there, and there had to be workmen.
Crows.
Yeah.
Ooh, actually, I think
Birds
timing wise. So hi, birdwalk, and it's appropriate because birds. But related to what damage could be caused by such a solar flare, it's relevant.
Right.
So was it Illinois or Indiana prairie hens, right? Are sorry if you're from one of those states and you're like, it's totally ours for our history. At any rate, like the population boomed into the millions, tens of millions, during roughly that time period. I think might have been before that slightly, but
It's because we killed all the ferrets.
It was ferrets, but also it was because we were wiping out the prairie, which we did in sort of like small patches, and so we created an abundance of food for them while keeping a bunch of the prairie grass where they bred in, so their population quadrupled to quintupled into like the tens of 20s of millions, and like they're like turkey sized practically, and so they would gather on telegraph wires and like bring them down when telegraph wires were still like a new structure. So I'm imagining like a ton of these up on the lines, just getting.
That sounds like dinner time.
Yeah, I was like, hey.
Just the whole county smells like barbecue.
Yeah. One guy was
Yeah,
on
the
his
whole
knees.
county gets free dinner.
Right?
Right.
One guy was on his knees making a plea to their deity and was like, "My family and I are so hungry. Please provide us
Our
dinner.
only natural predator is these turkeys.
Send me a sign." No, then zap. Anyway,
If you're up there, please save me, Superman.
I'm glad that we're making light of the fact that humanity just got obliterated by a Carrington level event.
Hey,
Anyway, no.
hey, we killed humanity.
By the way, welcome to Trappist Transfer, where you'll learn random facts about things not related to sci-fi through a sci-fi lens. At any rate.
I mean, that's what sci-fi is about,
Right, no, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Those are my favorite sci-fis.
Yeah, truth.
So, yeah. Was there any more to the latency piece? Sorry, we got hella distracting.
Oh, I don't know.
seems great.
That's what I had. It was just like, you know, just a small little blurb about, like, with statistics about the frequency rate and like severity of latency as
Gotcha.
as it affects people, and it's like a just kind of an AI that does fluffy news feed stuff for the ship. Like it's just sort of like
TMZ level.
yeah, it's just there. It's just background noise. It's like, you know, how is your experience in the hold? You know, like
I'm glad we brought that along with
Actually,
us.
yeah, that seems like a terrible thing that humanity would not have shaken yet. So cool.
I think they're just they're so like used to it that they don't really notice it anymore. It's just like a little thing. It's just like the click the link thing. It's available there, but is anyone really listening to it? Doesn't matter. The AI is going to do it regardless. So it just makes commercials. There's an AI that makes commercials, and that's part of Comms 3 now.
Okay, well, you know this means that you're taking on a responsibility then for our future games.
I have to make commercials.
Yeah,
Yeah,
make
you
commercials.
do.
In fact, I would love for you to make actual sound bites for us using the computer. I don't know if there's a way for us to play it in game, or you'll just play it for us, and then we'll figure out a way to talk
How
about
do you
it.
get Comic Sans in voice?
With emojis? Emojis. I'm gonna go with emojis.
No, that would still be technically text-based.
Yeah, but with
That'll be
like
like
it pops
Cameron
up in your HUD. I don't know.
Technically.
Right.
We'll figure something out. Sorry. I'll catch up to the 23rd century.
Yeah.
23rd century. Cool. I like this. We'll talk more about that in the future. Please come up with stuff.
Yes.
In the meantime, you also see there's like this, it pops up a little bit on your news feed, but it's basically like trending level of like, hey, pay attention to this, and that's the only reason it comes up, is like one of the like the most like violent troll battles are happening on this forum, where it's just like basically this one person is like posting a conspiracy theory about the world was destroyed by aliens, and it's just like and that post sets flame to the mesh, right? And just people are like, oh my god, it makes so much sense. And this other person is like, what are you talking about? This is a terrible event, and like we need to like grieve our people, and you're just throwing around crap. It was a natural event, and just like it's back and forth and devolved very quickly. But it's popping up because it's just like it's flaming right now, right? And like some people are even like, can y'all keep this like to a minimum right now? We're trying to conserve processing power. Like it's that kind of weird just cluster of like internet rage happening.
Yeah.
It's Twitter.
Right.
It's a subreddit.
It's a subreddit.
It's text only.
The moderators are not doing a good job. Actually, we're moderators, and so it's bad things. Did you have one you wanted to mention?
Oh, just, like there'd be like something popping up in the background about, I don't know. I forgot.
No, it's totally cool. If something pops up later, let us know. Like, I'm just going to create a cool environment. I'm down. Then...
And they start to get put on the spot. I got awkward.
I feel
Sorry,
like...
y'all.
No, you're fine.
I mean, I should have realized it was my turn.
You did great.
You teachered me and I wasn't ready.
Oh, God. Put it on the spot.
Teachered.
How about I teachered...
It's a verb.
How about I teachered you in a different... You did it.
Talk?
No. Teachered. We're doing that now. I don't teach English, by the way.
You teacher it?
I'm gonna teacher it. I died a little inside. This is No Child Left Behind, by
You're
the way.
welcome.
I'm just gonna be real clear. How about this?
Yes.
Can you give me a little piece on perhaps I don't know what kind of truths would Truth Seeker or Truth Seeker's assistant be kind of like? They've got a pretty raging Twitter because they're trying to like get out of their the shadow of Truth Seeker. Like they make a lot of posts. Maybe they reach sometimes.
Yeah.
But they're trying to uphold the values. Do they have any particular thing that they're interested in, like that's been happening on the ship?
Definitely. I think that they are trying to like form some kind of group that is
A band?
holding people accountable for like the amount of processing they're using, because they don't think that it's being like police and people are like taking more than what it's allowed. Like that's completely against the type of thing that like
Reduce, reuse.
Triss like does. Like Triss is kind of like a little bit, I think part of the reason that they joined Truth Seeker in the first place is that they're a little bit like you know that person in college who thinks that they're like an activist and is trying to like help people, but really they're kind of just like making stuff worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Like,
hope that's not other-
I've never heard of anyone.
Yeah, I don't know what you're
like
talking about. I feel like that's the blurb they put on their resume. I'm
Right.
trying real hard, but I'm probably gonna make things
I'm
worse.
probably gonna
Right,
make
yeah.
things worse. So I think what they are basically doing is they're kind of like they basically have because they're a hacker, like that's kind of one of their things that they do. They've kind of gathered some people that they are like using to help them spread their truth, which is like holding people accountable. And so they're just gonna like fucking shut people down. And I think right now they might even be working to shut down those fucking people arguing about aliens, where it's
Right.
just like, oh, you like
Unfortunately, they're just
You
getting
can't do
wrapped into
this
the
right
troll
now.
battle.
Right.
Oh, and
Probably.
they,
Fuck you, buddy.
fuck you.
So are you trying to shut him down, like, on a programming level, like, I'm actually revoking your access?
Yeah, basically
Yeah.
like you can't be using this processing right now.
Unf-
Fuck you.
Unfortunately, the algorithms that Triss is trying to use for that seem to not like that is legitimately a power that like Triss has potentially a
That's
connection
just
to.
what I think they'd be doing.
Well, no, for sure. But they're a little bit perplexed in that the subroutines that they're like typically go through that allows them to kind of like query and basically bring up a question to the populace. That's like, you know, 'cause that's how you go about it, right? It's like, hey, do we like enough of us believe that this should be like, you know, squelched for now, right?
Yeah.
That is just not even working. Like it's 404, like real strange, just like beach ball of death, kind of like that's weird.
Like nothing Triss is trying to do is going through.
Yeah, like it's real weird.
Fuck.
Yeah, but I like that piece. Is like at least like the which is good. The news blurb happening right is like, you know, particularly like activist group like PSAs, right? Like this is how you should do. Almost like working in conjunction with some of the pieces that Penelope is talking about. Whoever's kind of being
Right, just
putting
a
out
more
that
aggressive version.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's simultaneous viewpoints coming at like this piece. Like people are like,
Right.
hey,
Some of those people probably were even from your hacker group. They're like, yeah, let's fucking shut these people down.
yeah, I like it. Maybe I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe.
Weaving a hug. Obviously, they just need a hug. Cool.
I don't know about that.
No, weaving a fist.
A blanket hug?
A blanket.
like it,
A velvet fist. Go on. I do miss the Velvet Hammer, by the way. The auto body shop on 82nd.
Yeah.
Woodstock. It was just the best name.
Oh, was that the
Kinda
one
like,
that was black and white check?
Yes. I'm pretty sure it's right on the corner there. Like
Kind of like
for those who are not importantly like
King
don't care,
Cobra?
but still important.
On-
Next to the pawn shop across the kitty corner.
Yeah.
I have weird memories of that region. And the last one, unless anybody has another one after this, the last piece you hear is basically like a little blurb, like news piece, and like sort of like somebody pleading for your help, right, to kind of like gather people's attention, noting that the 200 children of Earth have been transmitted to the Pollux in that last burst. And those interested in fostering their consciousnesses should contact, you know, basically private message this particular like group that is responsible for transmission and reallocation of like basically volunteers that have shown up to help all of those who are like the dispossessed from Earth, right? And this particular group is like volunteered to like help out like the children's consciousnesses that were transmitted.
Wow.
Because if you remember, if you want to know more,
Tell me more.
if you remember, like since the Great Fall and like famines and war, right, where the population was reduced at 400 million, that's about the time that the digital consciousness technology came along, and it sort of like removed in essence this. I don't want to say remove like the drive to reproduce on a particular timeline, because now the way people are like approaching it and looking at it is okay, well, we have time, there's no like I don't need to like have a kid by X, right? It's kind of like just slowly progressed, and we are hyper aware of the level of population and sustainability of the planet, so we've kind of dialed ourselves back to like this is a sustainable amount. Right, and so children are far more rare, right? And there are only 200 children, like within ranges of months to 16, right? Kind of idea. There's like 200 children on the planet basically, and all of them are transmitted.
And it makes sense that they were on the planet because they would have been had by people who were going to keep doing it the sort of old way.
Yeah,
if you will.
There were certainly like what you were aware of with this was like many different combinations of families and family styles, right? With like many like children and siblings, often in communities, so they could like connect together, right? All over the world in different places, but like there were sort of like bimodal families where they had like two different consciousnesses, sort of in a classic mother father, but like that is not the roles anybody played anymore. There are groups of 17 that all contributed different elements of, I'm just throwing out a random number, but like high, right? All contributing different genetic material to sort of like all be part of that child, right? In some way. So like it's really moved away from a dichotomous like view on parenting, right? And like what a family structure looks like. But these 200 children, right, were being fostered and cared for in different communities, all got sent, right? They were on Earth, like they're still being like, it was an honor to like raise a new human being, right? Like it's power adding their voice to the ranks properly. So yeah, that just kind of is a little blurb that's in the background that you'll have to deal with in the future.
I mean, the children are our future.
The children are our future. Leave no child behind on Earth.
Oh.
I would like to meet these children.
Let them leave.
You probably know a lot of them, one way or another, right? And like in terms of the transmissions. Yeah. So unless there's any other like little blurbs right now, or
so just with everybody's talking about like, because like the way that I see it is that people, as they got over like sort of the initial blast and things like that, they've got their mesh up, they're like, doing debate and discourse because they can't hardly handle what's happening right now, the truth seeker stuff and the wait, what is it? Aliens? Some people are saying it was aliens
like
destroyed.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it was aliens,
but aliens,
right?
But also, like we even know an alien species sort of now, the squiddies, right? But like the person's not like, if the squiddies did it, like he's just saying aliens, right? Like you're just like, hey, who? We know
it's
they
extra
exist.
ridiculous.
If there's one,
right,
there's got to be a lot,
and one of them probably did it.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of like our heads up displays being kind of like the way an insomniac watches cable TV, where it's like this pops up and this is loud and like more. Right, and this is I'm speaking from experience in case anyone doesn't know.
I'll go into great detail,
right? But like the part that I have to add, because I do see these things popping up and you can choose one and there's like this in the corner or whatever, is I think that maybe Pollux is like, well, if Castor can like then maybe other people are, and kind of like takes this old file that Castor used, like these lists of things to like sort of go down and check off, and just kind of puts it out in there like, are you feeling overwhelmed? Do you feel anxiety? Like, here's the thing. And just to see, like, it just as another resource in the sort of like rolling sea of resource.
I'm going to go one step further since it's Pollux, and Pollux has a significant amount of control.
For sure.
There are like one of the little things that pops up in the corner is instead of that or in conjunction with that.
Sure.
Pop-up trauma centers.
Yeah.
are showing up around that are like, here are like advertised as a place to go, safe space, etc. Like, but
So-
like at like all in a really like ham-fisted
Right.
digital kind of way of just like, here's a ball pit, right, or like or whatever, right? It's just like, well, okay, I guess that would be my happy place, maybe. Or like, in some people, it's just like, waterfalls or
Right.
or whatever, right? Hot and cold.
I also
play around
like
with those
this.
pieces.
The other thing that I thought of, which actually goes quite in conjunction with the ham-fistedness, is maybe that Pollux took like sort of a cursory look at like, oh, well, Castor had these physical readouts or these, psi readouts when this happened. Oh, that person's in the red. They get the extra ad, or they get it a little bigger, or, that kind of thing. Like maybe one is
they're-
just like are
right,
you feeling
Facebook.
anxious? And another one is like, we have ball pits, right?
Oh my god, yes, ball pits. I totally love
Too
ball
many
pits.
germs.
It's a digital ball pit. It's like the best of all possible ball pits.
Digital
know,
ball
I'm-
pits can have digital germs.
Canon. No take backsies. Please write that short story. I wanna hear that. I'm not kidding.
Just sharing my truth.
Digital
I
scabies.
wanna have your truth clearly spelled out in a little vignette. Or not.
Word.
That's fine.
So yeah, that's
can
the
do
only
that.
one that
Cool.
I have, just like a little added thing, and I just
Yes, I like
imagine
that.
it being Pollux trying to help.
This is what Pollux has been doing while you've been gone, by the way. It's just like, this is all I have.
Right.
I don't know, meat suits are freaking out right now. Like,
Right.
cool. So all this is sort of like taking place in that walk up together into the hallway, right? Not all of you are even aware of all of these pieces happening necessarily, or none of you, sometimes, perhaps like Castor, is like, this is probably not even coming over, maybe a few of those, right? But you enter into your office, right? The door opens and you walk in, and it is just like a mild klaxon is going off, like boo, boo. Maybe that's not too mild, but like a pleasant tone.
Well, and it
but
was
it's a
like
pleasant tone that's
red.
repeating.
I feel like
And
last
no, I was
time
getting
you
to that too.
described it as
Also red flashing.
yeah.
It was sound first, then, and you're just like, I didn't even know this room could do this. Like it's okay. And it is, you see a lot of that flashing red from your displays. Like one, far more than you've ever seen displayed in here, in this sort of like floating digital 3D like holographic representation of the consciousnesses in the whole, right? This is an unmanageable number. It's like your first like, oh crap, and a significant number of them are red, more with colors you don't even recognize as well again that we've seen before. And Pollux chimes in immediately as like the klaxons stop, like kind of like the moment you become to awareness of what's happening here, and Pollux is like the most flustered you could sort of see it, and it's just like, you're here. There are 2.12 times 10 to the 6th consciousnesses present in the hold. Processing power is not capable of maintaining this level of work. We need assistance. And it's kind of like waiting.
Sure. Is it easy to share that? Like, am I able to like open it up and be like, we are all communicating with Pollux right now?
Yes, I would say that in this, like, Pollux is being is broadcasting. Like Pollux is.
Oh, okay.
No, I gotta say that. Yeah, Pollux's voice is very present in the room. To all of you, it's not
Oh,
like a
okay.
booming PA. In fact, to all of you, it sort of comes across as like a voice in your ear, right? Like not whispering, nothing creepy, just like, oh, it's next to you and with you, is the sound, right? But not just omnipresent sense, right? And you see like a little icon pop up in your HUD. You have a HUD too, basically, right? Where you are very aware of that this is like Pollux. This is the like indication that Pollux is speaking to you, right? For you, this is, I don't know, how is it for Comms 3 being in the like physical digital presence of like Pollux? Like, how does Comms 3 view Pollux? If you don't mind me putting it on the spot. I mean, no take back.
I don't think that the Pollux is never like anthropomorphized to Comms 3, so he or it. They. I like they.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think it's still like kind of like it. understands Pollux as a data stream, or as like a as this like
Hasn't put any personification to it.
Yeah, if it's
part
like
of the
like
machine.
plasma in that is coalescing in certain points, and zoom in and look at things in more detail, or pan out to a much bigger space. And there's lots of stuff going on. You can see all of the subsystems. Some of them they can access. Some of them they can't.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a certain comfort that Comms 3 takes at the presence of Pollux. Pollux is like a stable.
Every time Pollux has touched you in the past, right? It's like you've been useful, you've been needed, you've been there for it, and so there's a positive association for lack of a better term for you, right?
Right. I have no reason to feel anything but positive towards Pollux.
Usually.
Exactly, like
around.
you're the greatest.
Like a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
That's right. You still look like a little girl with a balloon, don't you? Or something? I don't know, a little child. I don't think we specified anything. Like, with like a child.
I would say probably doesn't look very gendered. We'll just say androgynous.
Is it still like a little bit of a
like a generic child.
TM for generic child?
Oh my god.
I mean, all
Current
children
meat
are
sack configuration.
Yeah.
a slight
Your current meat
silhouette
side
of a
configuration,
child
is it
is all
still
I'm
like
picturing.
a weird combination of faces and features, or is it like just some generic, literally one generic piece?
At this point, I'm like flashing instead of like all the little parts doing its own thing. It's like it'll look like this child for a while, and then it'll look for like another
But one complete
child,
image.
and yeah, but just kind of slides in and out of it.
Nice.
Just as maybe depending on whether or not comms is like borrowing data from the blast to illustrate things, kind of like metaphorically, it will play a video, like kind of like that they are suddenly this other child who's saying whatever that child would have said in the message, but then other times it would kind of go back to this default generic that when it was acting like
So it's learning to find its own words?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have, initially
Yeah.
it was flipping through and using other people's voices
Right.
and their intonation and like collaging on top of each other, but now we're finding a more generic...
right. It's a lot easier actually to just sample.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It's evolved currently into more of like, or it from a like ransom note, newspaper letter type of communication style to now a little more consistent, but it's still flipping through.
And one thing, like at a certain point, Pollux starts saying around the ship, turn off any systems that are not necessary, like and all the other AIs that comms used to be part of that, or maybe still is, I don't know, but got the message. But it kind of like, oh, Pollux needs me to shut down systems, so I shut down all peripheral systems, and then I just like stop at the generic. So I essentially like stopped all my subroutines that were like gathering information.
You might get back to it later, but like for now you're like,
Yeah, exactly. I just
okay, Pop.
got it. Yeah, exactly. Like turning off your flashlight. You've been reading underneath the blanket. Like,
I like that. Okay, cool. So then,
Question.
yes.
Does Pollux have a manifest avatar?
No, I haven't created it yet, but what I would like
It
is...
has a thing, but it's
so
you've seen it, but
Okay, what? You can augment this, but the way that I see it is that in our HUDs, like for example, when this message comes through, and we all recognize it as Pollux, you have like a 2D icon. And then much like your filters, you can have kind of any Pollux filter that you like for like sort of like, I want a buxom dragon for my Pollux delivery system. Like,
I'm just getting all flustered. Like, oh my.
Yeah, or you know, maybe I won't beard a dwarf. Like whatever. Like you just do you.
In your gobble hobble.
Shh, we're not talking about
It's
Gaster.
Not polite.
I've really been thinking of Pollux as like computer from Star Trek, or yeah, Star Trek. Whoa,
Yeah.
that was a moment. Sorry,
Yeah.
but something that's interactive but disembodied.
Yes, absolutely. And up into the fact that like you can kind of like get things to little bit more interact with it, like something that like if you're a person who's like, well, but I need to talk to a thing, I can't just talk to this.
I can't talk
It
to the air.
still acts as like you know what you're talking to. It never feels like a full thing. It's like you are still Pollux inside this avatar that I have.
I like that. I was going in a slightly different direction, but like I'm like that, and I'm going to take it once like a little bit like more focus on it. So, like Pollux mentioned in their plea to humanity, right? It has found its voice. And that is still how it presents itself to humanity as a voice, right? And so there are those pieces where, you, like you said, like there is a like some representations when needed for interaction, but it doesn't feel in its own level of development or current desire that it needs to represent itself in a anthropomorphized kind of sense to humanity.
I like that.
Maybe it will at some point. Maybe there's other needs for it, but right now it's like I have found my voice, but I do not necessarily need a body yet, nor do I
Right.
deserve a body, or like it's just like it's working its way through them, like what that means, or if it needs that element of self. So cool.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
so that would mean, yeah, no, because that means that even if you need to talk to something, everybody's something sounds the same.
Right.
Like,
Also, I like that level of creep, to be honest. Is that like I may
Unicorns
have
talking to you with Pollux's voice
Yes.
versus a generic child trademark.
Right. And I hadn't thought about it, but I like that it's like it's almost childlike, which in a lot of ways Pollux still is, the way that Comms 3 still is just that kind of dig of like, cool, you can see me how you want, but you still have to hear this voice that I have crafted for you. Like you still have to, you can even write a filter to fluctuate that voice, but it's still this voice coming through. Although I see that as a hacker thing, that's not actually approved, by the way.
Yeah. I like it. So I think that to kind of play this piece off as well, I will have you come up with a level of what Pollux sounds like at some point, because I think it's going to be heavily modulated based upon caster. Right,
Yeah.
like I originally wanted to think something like, oh, my almost like mimic caster, but I don't think that's the case. Like I think through your interaction, right, and this deep learning, if you will, process that became sentience, it discovered like it molded itself to be the voice that is most pleasing to caster.
I like that. And that it honestly, that it would happen
Just over time.
it would go back and forth too, because also in its kind of like role to be sentient, you have to learn what is pleasing. You have to learn how to read pleasing. You have to understand, you know what I mean? So like,
What is caster?
what, oh fuck.
You did this.
I did it. Listen, Game Dad, I know.
No, I love it when you do terrible things. No, I mean, great things. So shout out, by the way, to Another Life, which we've mentioned on the show before, with like Katie Sackhoff. I was just like, as we were talking about that, I was like, oh, this kind of sounds like an element of that in like the very first like few minutes, right?
Right.
You meet the ship's AI, and they're like, oh, how did you choose this form? And it's like, oh, I went through a personality scan of you and basically chose the most pleasing amalgamation of like various pieces that you would like. And you're like, cool.
What I love about that particular show in that moment, though, so I like that show because it has a lot of like well-crafted elements of off-kilterness, not like oh, in your face, like rip it apart, like oh God, what's happening, but like just gentle stuff. So in that moment, if I remember right, she was very much like, all right, seems legit.
Yeah,
and
no,
like
she
just
kinda rolled with it.
kept going, and it's sort of like, oh, because it kind of rolls over those like what we, especially in our current time period, think of as like what's violation, what's like, too much, like what's private. And she was just like, yeah, seems legit.
Yeah, that's where I think we've talked about that show in the past, and I appreciate the bad science stuff that the show does is not so bad because they don't even try to address it. It's just like, no, shut up, faster than light communication, goodbye. And we're like, okay, it just happens.
I don't know,
there's a reason. I'm just not going to tell you. I'm like, all right.
I like Sam
long as you
Raimi
handle it
nervous
that way.
systems.
What's that?
Sam Raimi nervous systems. So into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they even threw in some body horror. It's awesome.
Oh, so good. That movie or that show is just like Another Life. Subtitle: Anxiety.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, what now?
But that being said, as someone with anxiety,
What's that?
so as someone who lives every day with anxiety, it is the most gratifying anxiety I have ever experienced because they always come back around and it's pleasing.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, we did the thing. I'm like, thank you for doing the thing.
And then 30 seconds later,
Oh,
no.
something else.
It's I think and we got to get back to the game, but it's relevant. To me, it's the best in terms of storytelling. Best combination of we've got this driving story arc that is doing this the entire time, and you feel wrapped into a big story arc. But it does this episodic thing inside of that really well.
Yeah.
Right. So it's it doesn't just feel like a disembodied episodic like Star Trek Next Generation, which I still love. Don't get me wrong. Which is okay, just each episode is a little pod, and then occasionally there's a bigger arc. This was big arc with the cool little pods wrapped in there in nice bows, which was cool. Yeah. Question?
No, you said
more?
next gen, and
now they're thinking about
totally
that.
went somewhere completely different that I will tell you all after.
Oh, please subscribe to get the good content later. Just kidding, this is great content, but yeah. So moving back on, where are we gonna handle this, right? So Pollux jumps in with all of these pieces, right? Of this is how many consciousnesses we have. This is how everybody's sort of responding to this presence. We need to get things manageable until a leader can help us choose, or the people can help us choose how to handle the situation.
Cool. Everybody sit down. Basically, I'm sitting down I'm not going to go anywhere. And there's a whole table. And maybe I also maybe imagine it. I'm honestly thinking of the Dr. Strangelove, the war room.
This is actually perfect for what we're about to talk about.
Great.
So there was 100% a war room with big ring of lights
Yes,
sort of
this
up
is
above, chairs all around at the table, and a space in the middle.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is exactly how I pictured it. And then the kind of sci-fi elements that I'm thinking of is that so Pollux says what they say about the consciousnesses, whatever reactions happen, I see them, or Caster sees them, and then it's cool, gonna sit at this table, and then tables would be able to, much of the rest of the stuff would be able to link up with your displays. So, you could organize information here, you pull this up, hey, friend, you want to see this
getting
thing?
everything in the mesh.
Can I get into this?
Yeah, hold on for half a second. In the midst of this area of the table is a sphere, right, with it's kind of holographic, and you see, and a little transparent, and you see what you recognize to be a scaled down version of the hold within the hold. And with that, there's also color coding of where a lot of consciousnesses are. You see it as a sort of a map of processing power, and where you see rolling rippling waves of it turning black and then color restoring. Those are the rolling brownouts that are happening. Again. So that's in the center of the table. But did I distract you? Sorry.
Just sort of as an infographic.
Yeah. So it's just a visual infographic that's constantly updating, right?
No, I'm just I'm gonna show up as Dr. Strangelove.
You see the reference
in the wheelchair. With
I like to think that there was one oldest eccentric on Earth that was you know what? My consciousness can die, but if nobody ever sees Dr. Strangelove again, it's gonna be a travesty. And just
I'll tell you
Peter
though.
Sellers.
Yeah, no, Stanley Kubrick will survive.
Oh, there's definitely going to be some 2001 Space Odyssey moments here, aren't there?
Yeah.
No spoilers. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not throwing bones.
Yeah.
Not with that attitude. Sorry, continue. You're saying Penelope?
Penelope definitely sits down at the table, but then in a private window starts calculating deletion criteria, because there's no way we can keep all of this, and like somebody's gonna have to make a hard decision. So
Oh, I agree, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But you-
I mean, Mr. President. God, such a good
If we were to like look at our data, would we see that the number is going down?
It is currently stabilized at like that. You can get a specific number out of that, but like 2.1 to 76 a bunch of zeros. But like to the person, right, is like you see it's like stabilized right now.
Well, and it sounds like you are getting it ready. Penelope's getting it ready,
Oh,
but
yeah.
not necessarily enacting it.
No,
Yeah.
to be clear, this is like private window.
Yeah.
This is like, all right.
Also, to be clear, Penelope is exceptionally aware that they don't have an ability to hit execute on that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is calculations only, right?
Yeah, no, this is starting to like form data structures so we can figure out what we need to do.
Projected
I
models going
already,
from there.
I already tried to jettison the stowaways.
You can't read this private window.
Oh, okay.
You don't like when I said private.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like really private.
Like me.
Absolutely. Then.
Yeah, no, you definitely have any access to that. You see that there's an uptick in processing power that Penelope is using. That's it. Just not like anything significant, but you notice a little like as you've got those heads,
What
right?
if we just give people the option to delete themselves? Like send them a button, tell them a situation.
That actually is not like
Not a terrible
Castor
idea.
and Pollux would never ever condone this behavior, but that sounds awesome. Like the same. No. Hear me out. Hear me
Hello,
out.
see?
Is it the same way that we told people, please if sleep like
So I
it,
only want to have this conversation if it's in character right now.
Okay.
That wasn't character. Truth Seeker was
No, for
literally-
sure. And that's
Oh,
that's
I
where-
didn't
that's
get
where you
that,
said-
sorry.
That's where you said Castor, and I was like, I want you to do this from their perspective. So
Okay,
if they
cool.
don't believe this, don't.
I don't
we can
know.
talk about
I
this
didn't. I'm
post-fact.
sorry. I didn't realize that you were saying it. Like I thought it was a joke.
you're
I didn't
fine.
realize it
Don't
was
worry.
in
Serious.
To
character.
be clear, I just now said we should do it in character.
Okay,
So I was like, I
got
want
it.
this council to kind of do that.
I was actually as Truth Seeker saying that.
yeah. Penelope is like.
Would you do me the
that
favor
is a
of
very
just
humane
redoing
option.
it?
Oh yeah.
For me?
What?
Sorry.
What if we told people the situation? We can't hold everybody. We overtaxed our systems, and basically give them the option to delete themselves. We can even send them a button to press if we want to get real. Yes or no. Check a box. Press a button. It's really simple.
So Penelope is like, this is a very humane option. Sorry. But there is a greater chance that we will lose the best of us rather than the baggage.
Oh. All right, that down baggage.
Castor
And
seemed.
She's trying to be
Don't forget
polite.
stowaway.
Castor
Stowaways.
seemed like that they were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and then it was dashed.
You
Like,
make a good point.
Penelope
Right.
is really good at dashing hopes.
well, I believe it.
I
But
still think we should tell people what's going on.
At this point, Pollux chimes in. So I'm like Pollux a little bit. And is just like, not to interrupt the brainstorming process, but these sound like decisions that need to be left up to a first among firsts and the populace as a whole.
Yes.
How many?
Get a
Perhaps
hold of
perhaps
anybody
one of
right
you
now, then?
would wish to apply for the position. I hear that the applications are due by 0700. We don't know what time it is right now.
Well,
I will
six,
definitely be
6
applying
hours
for
from
this
now.
position.
6 hours from now.
Penelope just like quirks an eyebrow at you and frowns.
Also looks at you and says, "There is no precedent for electing two simultaneous beings as the first among firsts."
But are we two simultaneous beings, or are we one working toward the same goal with slightly separate viewpoints?
Y'all hear the sound that is one voice, but it looks like True Seeker is trying to speak at a normal volume, but it's coming off at like 1.5 to almost twice that volume. So it doesn't sound like two voices interwoven, but it sounds like two voices perfectly overlapping, so they're double as loud.
Yeah,
It's in a strange way, and you're like kind of having trouble modulating the volume of your voice right now.
There's probably
What do you
a
mean?
waveform too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What do you mean
It's
two of
sinusoidal.
you?
Well, that is what we came to find Castor for.
Like Castor is just literally like
Code?
This isn't normal.
So you, at this point, make a moment where like you are recognizing a link between Truth Seeker and like your heads-up display in terms of the consciousness train of thought, and Truth Seeker is one of those colors you don't recognize on the boards. But like an interesting shade, but like there's like a group of shadings that you notice there are like others in the like just kind of like you can't track how many or what they are, where they are, but there's like different shades of, let's say, purple, for lack of a better color right now. I like purple.
So data's good. I feel like Castor would be like
Okay.
Also, like there's this thing that I was thinking about is that while this is not normal for Castor, and there's a certain amount of like it keeps coming back, and there's like it's an edging sort of like kind of just like always creeping in kind of thing, that I would imagine that what it kind of looks like is Castor is like okay, we had our 5 minutes of meltdown, like all right, Penelope, like let's get to this thing, and then it's like, oh, melting down again. like there's this sort of like up and kind of like, ooh,
Okay, we can't handle this now.
right, like 5 minutes of unhandling, all right, back to this. And so in that sort of like desire and like that attachment for data that Castor has, definitely seeing those odd colors probably in both of you would kind of be like,
Yeah, this is a completely unique color. You don't see anything else on the board, but it's definitely not what you would
Comms 3
classify.
is like orange.
Penelope looks at Comms 3 and says, "Friend, what even in the fuck are you?"
Mein Fuhrer! I mean,
right?
I default back to the child.
generic child.
I am comms system 3, but I am also comms system 2, comms system 1, and other unknown
You rattle off
systems. And that is then just a bunch of digital jargon.
hallway lamp number 3 on deck 13. I am also.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I am in complete control of the microwave on deck 5.
So comms 3 is rattling on, and I'm just like, or Castor just kind of goes,
that's great.
Pollux? Question mark. And Pollux should be able to read sort of like what comms, what, like, you know what I mean? Like just Pollux, like, could you, what?
Pollux responds that comms 3 has it like pauses and starts analyzing. Like there's a moment where you recognize a significant drain of processing power in the room, and Pollux comes back with sort of almost a question mark inflection, right? Of just like unknown entity. It looks like comms 3 has grown to encompass multiple other systems, and its storage space requirements have far exceeded its original design parameters. It appears to be something new. Sounds intrigued. That's kind of what it says to you.
Okay.
Is it a helpful something new? Are you a helpful something new? Are you...
I love this.
We have similar goals.
Being...
Murder all humans.
In my opinion, they seem pretty moldable.
Hey, baby.
child.
Penelope never said
Don't
that
you
she
want to
wanted
kill
murder.
all humans?
See what I mean?
No.
Moldable.
Says
focus,
the combination
focus,
of two people.
Hold on, don't overroll Mark.
We have a storage problem, and we have a bandwidth problem. Clearly there are those on the ship that are not supposed to be on the ship.
Told you shouldn't have come.
Since your comms, can you sort out who came in that last data blast?
I'm working on analyzing that data as we speak. That is my primary function.
I like it. So at this point, Pollux chimes in, and like you recognize that Pollux is I don't know, bringing something to everybody's attention, like that icon shifts. There you go. Like that's what I was looking for. To something like flashing. It says that I'm gonna words this in my head for a moment. That subroutines, daemons behind the scene who are typically responsible for sorting out the processing requirements for the ship have become are malfunctioning, right? And that is actually what's leading to a lot of the latency issues, as well as the lag. There is currently, and it's kind of like you recognize it's like a stream of digital consciousness as it is sort of like relaying a bunch of data that's coming through at the time. We currently have sufficient processing power if we go to exceptional low standard, like procedure such and such, right? Like where you could potentially sustain this amount of human consciousness for a limited period of time. Should we free up this processing ability, right?
Turn down the reflection detail. Way down.
Well, basically, there are these like optimization subroutines, right? These daemons who are always working behind the scenes to kind of help do sort of the flow of what Penelope was doing with the Weavers Guild, but it's been malfunctioning, right? And there's something going wrong with that.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, in this sort of like, I don't really know exactly where this would be good to interject, but like that at some point, Castor, right? At some point, Castor is like, okay, Pollux, I think I get it, because like it was always me and you, but then it was me and you and everyone else, and like that thing, Comms 3's usage is off the charts. Like, can you help? Can you help control? Can you teach? Like, Castor's not even sure of like what they're really asking for necessarily, but just this idea of like, Comms doesn't know. Comms is like, well, but I am this thing now, and I'm taking up things, and I ate up my brothers. Like, you know.
Pollux says that Comms 3 is taking up no additional processing power, only storage space currently. This unique pattern that is visible for their processing ability seems to come from a networking of those systems in a way that
so no
was
more
not
than
planned
those
for in the design
systems
procedures.
Used up. No more than those systems used up separately.
Correct.
But now they are one thing.
Storage.
Got it.
Yeah, but currently extra storage.
Yeah.
But it is wrapped up in the buffer, like the communications buffering system that is separate. So its storage is not impinging upon the virtual hold.
Okay.
At least currently. But what Pollux says is like what I mean is that these daemon programs need to be reset manually, for lack of a better term. And I want you to make, I believe, a hardware roll, or what is your programming? Probably that one. I'm still learning all those little pieces as we go. I've been reading this multiple times. There's so many.
Yeah, my programming is pretty good.
I think that's what you're going for. Is go for like basically or anything of like a network or computer that you think might be appropriate, whatever your highest kind of skill is.
I was actually going to ask if we could look at this and see if we can help Pollux figure it out.
Perfect.
I have a good...
I would say program's going to be my best role.
I might be able to help with either InfoSec or interface.
What is the value of your skills in both of those? 75
for InfoSec and 60 for interface. And I haven't burnt any of the 1,000.
Because of
points.
InfoSec, you can help. And so that's going to give you a +10 to your roll, Penelope. And I'll describe how, depending on how this works. So what's your total that we're looking for here?
So we're looking for 45 plus 10 then.
So 55?
55.
Cool.
88.
Ooh, and it's a critical failure.
That means we drain?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, always. All I got is cream soda.
My core is ejected into space.
I want to mineral water this and then get some booze here in a moment after our break, probably, but we're not there yet. Okay, so there's a moment where you feel. Hold on a second here.
I mean, I'm
sorry,
looking at
not
the
sorry.
data.
Hold on a second. So this is the critical fail element to it. So you're looking at data. You're a little distracted. The question sort of pops up as like you understand what Pollux is talking about, but the moment you're like at that moment of about to like recall the information, that's when Comms 3 chimes in with something that is just completely not helpful. That is actually really powerful, but like you're having a good time. Like you don't notice anything. It's just you mentioned something else, right? About some pop culture reference or piece that we're connected to in the conversation that is just like really interesting to you, but that completely derails you. So much so that you're kind of like a little frazzled, basically, and at your next roll you're gonna be at a -10, like just a little bit. Like it kind of just completely threw you off, and you're like almost frustrated. Maybe not at Coms 3, but yourself for being like, damn it.
I suddenly said, I want you to hear the song that I wrote, and then it's just like modulated noise.
Penelope looks at you and is like,
I understand
what the
music.
fuck? I'm trying to program. Can you help me read this algorithm and fix it?
I mean, would you even know to say sorry?
I doubt it.
So I'm going to say that you get another roll at this if you want. It just takes like a few minutes and you're at that negative. But after this, then you got to like wait a little while.
I feel like the closest thing to sorry. You
So
did is
we want
music
to
is
roll
subjective.
below.
So if your value is 45, you're now at 35, which
So I
is
want to roll like a
really low.
30.
Yeah, that sounds great. You want lower than the number, but as high as possible below that number, right?
Come on, dice failure. Jesus.
Not a critical this time though, so
So
you
we
just-
don't have to.
You're just not
I mean,
there.
I did get dice failure again. So
Mhm.
Do you want to try my big dice next
No,
time?
No worries.
Go back
Conveniently,
to
there's
the-
a Deus
you
Deus
took
Ex
it.
Wants to touch your
Machina.
big D.
Conveniently, there's Deus Ex Machina that is still going to give you this information, but you might have had some other insights down the line otherwise. But
yeah.
so at this point,
Yeah, rolling low.
hold on. At this point, Pollux requests that it has tried to send multiple sort of like algorithms to go clear up the problem, and it explains like if you ask any more about it, it explains that basically these subroutines are designed to kind of shunt it around, but it's you've recognized that from what Pollux is describing is that they're trapped in a bit of a loop, right? There's a sort of
Okay.
paradoxical element that has been introduced into the system with the sudden increase of consciousness, where if for some reason, and you're not sure exactly like where that programming element comes into play, it's got into a loop. So then they're not doing what they're
I'm
supposed
just
to
not
do.
seeing where that glitch that's looping is.
Yeah, exactly. And so what Pollux says to you then is, if you can't fix it from here, I need you to go into the machine layer to fix it.
You're going to have to lead me there because I'm not great in the machine layer.
Cool.
So basically, you've heard of this a little bit, but like people don't go there for generally a reason. Maybe you have a minor bit of like experience, but in a very safe pocket. Machine layer is kind of like machine code, right? Like assembly language. It is a virtual environment that is. It's behind the scenes, shall we say, right? It is completely computer oriented, whereas the hold is humans, right? Is designed like you're not breaking for the most part. Physics and other pieces, it is designed to be the closest to a reality as possible. Whereas this is the virtual from a computer perspective, right? The machine layer.
Yeah.
I also imagine, at least the way that I think about it, is that Castor definitely has experience with this layer, but it's in a hobby way. Like, Castor doesn't go there to work, but Castor's got time, and Castor likes to be away from folk.
So Castor actually has access to a sort of map of the machine layer, and kind of like you access, take control of you for half a second, access sort of like your computer like dashboard and go to your sort of like my most recent files kind of thing, and you toss up this image into the holographic display in the center. And if technology is worked out appropriately for the stream, it should be displaying perhaps now, Bill. But you see this, is it up there? You see this glowing sort of cloudy network. And for those of you who maybe are in the know, it is it's not in game, but I'm representing it as sort of a similar kind of sense. It is the dark matter structure of the universe with the sort of like layout of galaxies interconnected, right? It's like that large scale structure of these like tendrils and pieces, but realizing that like individual specks in there are entire galaxies of stars, right? It just looks like alien architecture to you. Oddly like a neural network. Or like sea foam, like these like repeated patterns throughout it on small and large scale, like a weird level of turbulence but order. And sort of like what you take is you kind of like grab it a little bit and like zoom in, and you just kind of like dive through the cloud past clusters of galaxies and pieces and things, or what you kind of realize are stylistic representations of such, but that structure. And as you zoom in, you get to the sort of world that looks like suddenly granular, right? Like boxes all structured together, kind of following along those chains and trains. And Mark and I had a conversation about this, and can't show you the movie still because that would violate Disney copyright law probably. But I really like the representation that they did in like Age of Ultron, for like it floating through the internet, right? As like each thing is like pages and websites or whatever is like a series of boxes, right? Computers and elements all strung together in this large sort of like physical space, practically virtual physical space. And that's kind of what you see is like a series of these rooms, right, that are around there, all as you kind of recognize like lots of streaming data and little pieces that you could maybe keep zooming in, focus on. There's constant flow and traffic happening. It is just like this living entity, right, as the machine layer. But I would say make an infosec roll, since you have a really solid infosec and you are a machine.
92.
Oh God, you failed it. Surprising.
It's
confused.
our theme.
Yeah, I would say like it wasn't a crit, but it was just confusion. Like for you, there is this strange sense of familiarity, but what you get out of that 92 is actually a little bit of fear.
Oh,
Which is kind of it's I mean, or the equivalent of fear for you is that it's something that now feels alien to you at the same time. Like that human level of consciousness that you've connected to from the blast is like grating at this machine logic piece that you're seeing.
Right. Like I fell a long ways for the first time.
Like they're like your abstractions, right? Like the abstractions that we've talked about in terms of what's coming to your head now, right, is now counter to this piece. I don't like that. Like, so you're like, this is machine, this is ordered, this is not that. So
yeah, and I feel like Penelope is used to that level of programming where you're borrowing already written code to weave things together. So like when you get down to base layers of that code, then she's just like, this is a little weird, but she can see the patterns there and maybe like start to figure it out.
Yeah, like this is like a really strange level of if we're using the weaving analogy, which also seems to work well for our programming casting elements, right?
Yeah.
Is like this is a level of familiarity with you, mostly on that larger scale, but now you feel like that fabric that you've always worked with, that like that cotton fiber, etc. You've now looked at that cotton fiber under a electron microscope.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh God, this is like it. I know that this is familiar, and I see it on such a like out of context scale that you're like so unfamiliar with it at the same time. I like that. So playing around with that a little bit. How are you with computers and computer-related knowledge? Caster, you as well. I'm curious about any skills you might have relevant that's kind of like connected to technology, programming,
So
anything
I
that
have
could be machiney.
straight up electronics under hardware.
Not so much on the hardware side.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty low on like infosec and interface and
Interface, I have 30, 45 total.
I'm really good at talking to people.
Are you?
Program is
Supposedly.
also 30, so 45 total.
Program's also 30.
Yeah.
I would say I'm going to give you a programming check on it with a plus 20, because even though the others have been failing, like the little snippets of communication that they've been bringing out, and with, I would say, Pollock's assistance has sort of been helping you out.
My research is an 80. Can I research it?
Actually, that is a really good piece. Would you like to aid? Actually, I think that would work potentially as a better skill for it. You don't have to.
Do you want to help Truth Seeker?
So,
because I could see research, because you could look this up is how I'd imagine this is common
if it's
knowledge.
information that I can access and look through that, I'm good.
At least in terms of the machine layer, like it's not in your normal purview, but you could Google it.
hey,
Basically.
Will, I totally forgot a thing.
What do you got?
I have network engineer as a 60, but because I have spatial visualization as one of my traits, I get a plus 10 to know or technical skills that involves 3D visualization.
This actually is the most appropriate thing, literally.
Yeah,
But otherwise,
seriously.
research, we're going to use that a lot. But,
That's all I had.
yeah. So I'm going to say, like, because of that particular piece, like, things that have been said so far have not been in that vein. So you're not
Yeah.
getting any bonuses on it, like what a caster potentially would have. But I'd say that gives you, what, a 70 in this particular instance?
Yeah.
Throw down, literally.
I was just like, wait, I have a thing, and we're in a 3D thing. There was a thing that
Roll
I
the way you
took.
normally roll.
I like all the teams.
58.
Okay, it's low enough. So this combining, especially with your weaving pieces that you had earlier, that insight, you've never been. You absolutely know that no one in this room has probably been to the machine layer, apart from, like I said,
Yeah.
safe bubble, like that has been designed in particular, because it is well known that humans and human consciousness does not handle that realm well. Right,
Yeah.
it is such a foreign. Like that's the reason why the whole reality is as close to reality as possible,
Yeah.
so that it doesn't upset the fragile human mind in terms of how we structure things. Right.
No, I'm still looking at this, and I'm a little nauseous.
No, you should be. So you recognize that going to this place is going to be difficult. Pollux is asking you to go as its representative to go reset the system. Is how it phrases it to you. I need you to get these daemons to do what they need to do, or basically optimize the system, which might mean
Battle your daemons.
deleting your daemons and rebooting them, basically, or rewriting them. Like, those are the suggestions that it makes.
Reinitialization.
Yeah, you need to reinitialize the system. Right? And so you know that you need to be going into this area, which is going to be traumatic to you, to say the least, using the trauma mechanics that we're still on, by the way.
How many traumas do y'all have?
Yeah, that's actually
I
a thing
have
I'm
I'm
gonna share
winning.
with you.
I'm
We're
winning.
gonna be taking a break here a little bit. We're not quite there yet, but maybe a few minutes. And at that point, I might have you refresh your trauma values, make sure I know what you've got. I'm gonna give you a chance to heal a little bit through some processes prior to, but you're still gonna have some traumas if you've taken them since last time.
I have one.
Oh, yeah.
I have one.
But basically, Caster specifically is asking you two to go. At one point, it kind of looks over, as much as Pollux looks, and it looks at Comms 3, and he goes, as much as this one is an unknown variable, it is a machine and would not be affected by the negative effects of this location, and could possibly help you navigate while you were there. It is not a easy place for those of your consciousness to navigate, and I will not be able to communicate with you clearly at this point. It just mentions you. It just mentions you and goes, you can probably go about your day. I mean, it's not disinviting you. It's just saying, like, kind of just leaving it open.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you want to come or not. What would your purpose be? Actually, it's probably how it just says, right? Like, just like that's. And what would your purpose be?
My purpose would be recording what happens. I don't know.
No, think about it from Truth Seeker's perspective, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's making sure that everything is truthfully
Tell the story.
and unbiasedly told to people who are not there.
it just goes acknowledged. Like, just like, all right, like it's just
Right, because it was like
Also, I got some tricks.
I would imagine that also Pollux is like,
resilient.
cool, I can't really parse that answer, but it's not the wrong one. Like, it's not a bad answer. It just is like, okay, so you're coming. Great. Like,
Yeah, great.
yeah.
So you're on the bus or you're off the bus? You're on the
Right.
bus? Great, cool.
Driving the bus.
Alternatively,
You're
like, I don't know if
definitely
this
not
was
driving the
still on the
bus.
table or if
I was
we went
joking.
past it, but like, I feel
I
like
think I'm driving the bus.
after a certain
shit.
point, begrudgingly, Castor would be like, okay, this is like way outside of normal stuff, and like we really have to share resources. This includes like processing power, fatigue, like all these things. If you have things you can research that will help here, then let's do that.
I want to.
Yeah, we'll get on it. Like,
I would say that
I researched real well. I got a 36.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So hold on. I'm gonna say that Pollock says, "All right, like this, matter is of the essence, but I understand preparedness is appropriate. Please take no longer than 60 minutes to return here. I will create an entranceway into the machine layer and send you on at that point." During that time, consider perusing, and it gives you sort of like this series of files, kind of like lays out that are basically like programs that'll help you optimize the systems, and you get down there. Your human mind interprets them as weapons. It says please choose something that is appropriate to your skill set, and we'll reconvene here in 1 hour.
So you're driving. I'm sewing. Stitching.
what part of that is?
Shotgun.
What
Hold
part
on.
of the van is that?
There's always a sewing part of the van.
Yeah.
So with that
I gotta stitch up the demons.
With that, we're about to take a break, but over the break, what I want you to do is basically choose your program, weapon that is appropriate to your character, basically. Like something simple, not crazy modified, nothing outrageous. We can talk. Also want you to refresh those sort of trauma pieces so we can get those numbers down. And then when we get back, we are going to reconvene and maybe talk about what you did in that hour, if there's anything at all, and then jump into the machine layer. Go behind the scenes.
What if I want like a close combat weapon? Does that matter?
Right.
That totally, those are some options.
Also,
that are
do
down
we
there.
have
There might be a
that
knife, a pen
information easily available,
What's
or
that?
should I be pulling that stuff up?
We have some pieces that should be available, or if you can pull it up digitally, it also works.
Okay.
At any rate, we're going to take a break. Thanks for watching so far. We'll be back after the break with heading into the machine layer.